Hi, I'm Alison Warner, founder of Evolve and Grow and author of Build and Grow. Welcome to the Evolve and Grow podcast show, where I share lots of useful tips and advice to tradespeople who are looking to move off the tools and grow a really successful business. So I'm delighted to be joined on the show today by Mark Millar, who is the presenter of Channel 5's new primetime series, Dream Kitchens and Bathrooms, and one of the most popular and recognised faces on BBC One's DIY SOS. Mark is from Northern Ireland and was raised in Belfast in the midst of the Troubles. He intended to train as a chef, but instead took up an apprenticeship as a carpenter. After 4 years, he left Ireland to head for London before settling in Bristol. Mark now runs his own building firm in Bristol, which continues to be extremely successful. He has many celebrity clients and has worked on projects all over the US and Europe, including New York and Spain. Mark is often invited to appear on radio shows as a DIY expert and has appeared on Children in Need many times. You may also have spotted him in Pointless Celebrities. In September 2020, he undertook a huge project in Swansea with DIY, SOS and Children in Need, their biggest challenge yet, building the first ever surf school adapted for people with disabilities as a piece of landmark architecture in just 11 days. So it's fantastic to have you here, Mark. Thank you very much for being on the show today.
You're very welcome.
That's great. Perhaps I can just start by asking you, I'm intrigued how you came to go from builder, and I know you still do that, but how you went from being builder to ending up presenting DIY SOS.
Well, I'm one of the presenters on DIY SOS. Obviously Nick's the main man on there, but if it wasn't for us, it wouldn't happen really, would it? I've been blessed really, as you said earlier, I wanted to be a chef when I was much younger, but my dad had some sort of shopping dyslexia, and he went out and bought me a set of chisels instead of cooking knives. So I ended up, I felt very obliged to follow my father's present. So I came out of school, went to technical college. I was really lucky because I was one of those people who was able to walk into an apprenticeship. So I spent 4 years in an apprenticeship in Ireland, and unfortunately, Ireland, there was a lot of troubles going on in Ireland at the time. So once I had got my apprenticeship under my belt, I decided I would head to the streets of gold in London. Which turned out they weren't the streets of gold.
Yeah.
It was actually very difficult. I remember the first day I arrived in London because I did that typical thing of the Irishman arriving over and, the stereotypical stopped in the pub for the pint. And the first song I heard was Christy Moore in the city of Chicago. And I was like, oh my God, where have I hitched to? I'm in the wrong city. I've gone the wrong way, So I spent a bit of time in London working there. Didn't really like it. Didn't really enjoy my time in London. And I got invited to a party in Bristol one weekend. So I came down to the party in Bristol, and not only did I have a great party, but I fell in love with Bristol in the West Country. So I decided not to go back to London. And I was really lucky. I just, in my career, I was really lucky because I found myself around a lot of very creative people who weren't just building houses, but they were making beautiful things. So it from being an apprentice on building sites, I was suddenly surrounded by people who were very creative, very artistic, and they made me start to think in a different direction, that building wasn't just about building houses, schools, hospitals, police stations, whatever it happens to be, whatever that structure happened to be. There was so much more that you could do in your trade. And being a carpenter, it's a great skill to have because it's a very much a hands-on skill. But my one big problem was I hated working for someone. So I just couldn't cope with having a boss all the time. So I stretched out on my own and decided to do things by myself. And I was really lucky. I had a fantastic partner in the business, and he was also very creative. And we pushed the boat out and we moved from building houses extensions, kitchens, loft conversions, into working in TV and in the music industry, building sets, doing theatre. And so I got the chance to work with different materials and different shapes, different time scales. When suddenly it was like, oh no, this job isn't going to be finished in 5 weeks. You've got like 17 hours to get it done. So I started learning how to work in a different way. And I was around different people who just got to know me and put me forward for DIY SOS. And I actually turned it down 4 times because I was so busy. I didn't really want to go into it. I didn't mind working around TV, but I didn't want to be on TV. But I finally bit the bullet and went for it, and had the most amazing first build with the guys on DIY SOS. Chris and Jules and Billy and Nick are amazing to work with. And I just had so much fun. And I loved working at speed, and I just loved the challenge. And the BBC came back to me and said, oh, would you like to stay on with us, and carry on? I've been there, I don't know, 17 years now, And it's really interesting because you take on an apprenticeship and you think to yourself, that's it, I'm going to be stuck in this trade for X amount of years until I retire. I'm going to be building houses, cutting roofs in, fitting kitchens. I'm going to be doing whatever. But if you just think out of the box a little bit and stay excited and look for new opportunities and don't be too frightened, step out and take them, that's when your career starts to change. I never, ever thought I would be working on television. I never thought I would be offered these incredible challenges week after week after week. Who else would be asked to take a 3-month project and condense it into 10 days and put it out on the TV? Who else would get the chance to work with children in need? To raise millions for children. Your career path, you're just not on one path. That's going to split and go in different directions. You can stay on that path, but I would always say to people, be brave, be adventurous, and maybe look up another route. Stick your head above the parapet and have a little nose around. Get to know people.
It's great advice. I mean, I always say it's much better to be a little bit scared and excited as opposed to bored and unfulfilled.
Exactly. Well, funny enough you say that. I have recently been going through the scared and excited bit all over again. Dream Kitchens and Bathrooms is another TV show that I've got involved with. And that's been incredible because I've been offered my own show and I've been presenting it myself, which is a huge step. It's a huge step for me. I never dreamt I would be doing this, from doing an apprenticeship in Belfast to, having a TV career. But I have once again gone through that fear and excitement, that transition. And you know what? It's an amazing thing to do because this sort of goes off the track a little bit, but it's something Rod Stewart said in an interview once. He talked about, he was asked why he just loved having children. And he said it just keeps you fresh and alive, And I always think change and something new does that to you. It brings you a new energy, a new zest, and just makes life a bit more interesting.
Well, you're right. It's very interesting that you say this, because it's what we call when you're in flow. And in order to stay in flow, you need to have an element of challenge. Otherwise, you move into complacency and boredom. And so it's that freshness, as you say, that is, and I can tell just from your energy, how you're talking. Yeah, you are very much in flow. You're obviously doing what you love and you're playing to your strengths. So yeah, very interesting. So what initially, I mean, you talked about your father there, but what initially attracted you to a career in the trades?
I wasn't very academic at school, and I was quite skillful at making things with my hands, but I was also very interested in stuff that was going on. I was always looking at how joints would go together and, how structures were put, and triangulation and mathematics. And I just liked making things with my hands, I liked wood, I liked it from the moment it was a tree to it was machined, to it was made into a piece of furniture. I loved that whole transition of working with wood. I was rubbish at working with metal, so there was no way I was going down that way. I don't think I had the patience to work with metal. It was too slow. I couldn't be bothered filing things all the time, Wood was it was a great medium to work in.
I mean, there's some great advice there generally, I think, to anyone, whether or not you're in trades or not. It's, do what you love, do what excites you, and don't be afraid to, I think you said, push your head above the parapet. So why do you think the trades industry at times in the UK can suffer from a poor reputation?
Well, I just think a lot of that comes down to, unfortunately, clients a lot of the time. Clients being impatient and not, how can I put it, not really respecting the trades in the way they should be respected. I feel a lot of the time you turn up, like the smaller builders who turn up to maybe convert a property or something along those lines, This country doesn't seem to treat trades very well. They're not respected like they are in America or other countries that I've worked in. And I just think people need to respect the trades a lot more. I think they need to be given that respect because they're bringing something to you that you need. You might be a brain surgeon or a whatever, some highly qualified university graduate doing something that you think is very incredible, but stop looking down at the trades because the trades are put that roof over your head or that hospital that you work in. It's a respected trade, and I think it's down to respect, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting perspective because I'm passionate about this, and I wonder if part of the problem lies in schools, because I don't know what it was like when you were at school, Mark, but certainly when I was at school, I probably was more academic and was not practical. Believe me, you wouldn't want me near anything that involved my hands. But, I remember the kids who weren't academic, it's almost they're given this subliminal message of, well, that's what you need to go and do, go and be a builder or a plumber because you've failed at school. And it's such a shame because, as you say, it is a tremendously skilled job.
It is a skilled job. There's a lot of builders who go out there who don't help themselves. I always think to be very respectable when you turn up to a job, when you turn up on site, you should look smart, you should be clean, your tools should be in good order, your vehicle, whatever that happens to be, that's a billboard for what you're bringing to that house, what you're delivering to that person. So help yourself, have a bit of respect in yourself, and other people will come and respect you as well. Something you just said a second ago about people who would move into academic work fields where others would work in the manual work fields. It's really interesting how the building trade's gone now, because the building trade is a very clever trade to be in. It's a very intelligent trade because it's moved on so much. All the digital way that we work digitally, the way we measure things, the way things are calculated. All the different systems from building a house, from the groundworks to the ridge tile, there's technology involved with building now. There's a whole new way of building, from when I first started, which was 40 years ago, I think. So it is an industry that want practical and thinking people. It's an industry that you don't think about just being a carpenter or a plumber or an electrician or a decorator. Think about, you could be a surveyor, you could go into architecture. There's many, many fields in the building trade, It's a fantastic industry to be in, and I'm glad I didn't go into a kitchen.
Absolutely. Was that another of your passions then? Were you interested in cooking or...
I still am. I love cooking. Yeah, I absolutely.
That you took it.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, it was literally down to my dad shopping whether it was going to be a set of kitchen knives or a set of chisels.
Destiny, you see, the universe.
Yeah.
So you talked there about the US having a different approach to the industry, and I believe that Australia does as well. In fact, I believe it, from what I'm told, Australia was similar to the UK at some point, and then it did change. I'm not too sure what brought about that change, or if you're aware of that. But
I think I was out in Australia a few years ago, and I go on busman's holidays. I drive along the road and stop at building sites and see what they're building. And, I'm a nightmare to go on holiday with, honestly. I won't take you to see, the Eiffel Tower or the Sydney Opera House or something. I'll take you to a building site in Melbourne to have a look at the timber frames they're putting up because it interests me.
Yeah.
But I think, I've got more experience in America because America's a very union-run country when it comes to sort of trades and any business at all. But the respect that you get as a tradesperson in America is fantastic. And also in Australia, because it's seen as a skill, a real skill, an essential skill, I should say. Because that's exactly what it is. And it was lovely to see the way they build in Australia as well. Everything has moved forward. They're a little bit more advanced. They've moved quicker into timber frame housing. They're using a lot more modular building. It's a very interesting area to be in, and the UK is getting there.
Yeah.
The UK is moving into the same field. But yeah, it's very interesting working in America because you are treated totally differently.
And what would you put that down to?
I just think we're back to that big R word again. It's back to respect. The trades are respected for what they bring to your door.
That must have happened in order to bring that about. Because I know in Australia, you can only do one trade, can't you? You can't be a jack of all trades. And so presumably it's regulated, and maybe that's part of the solution.
Do you know what? You've lost me on that one. I don't really know. I don't really know what the difference is there now. It's been a while since I've been. I think also it's put down to, once again, education, because it's in education, it's looked at as a trade to go into, an industry to go into. It's like, it's something that you should have be excited to be doing, because you're going to go out there, and there isn't a pecking order. That's the difference in America. You don't have that pecking order that we do here.
It's a good old class system, isn't it?
It is. That's exactly what it is.
So, what's your thoughts on the sorts of things that we could perhaps be doing to improve the stature of trades and how to make it a more attractive career path?
Well, do you know what? I think one of the simplest things that would make it much more attractive is advertising. I think advertising, apprenticeship schemes, looking at the industry as a much more interesting place to be. I think one of the best things I see about the industry, one of the best adverts, is some of the van companies that make adverts for their vans, and they show the areas, the way they shoot. It's clean, tidy, a respectful place to be. It's we need to get the word out there to the public, to the school children that are coming through, that this is a brilliant trade to be around.
I completely agree. And what about schools? What would your thoughts be on what we should be doing differently, perhaps at that level?
Well, I think back to the class system again. I think the schools should be getting rid of the whole thing of what job is better, what career is better than others. That a career in anything is fantastic to have, as long as you're happy. Do they still have careers teachers? I don't know.
I think they do, but I'm not convinced. I haven't got children, but I'm not convinced that they're necessarily doing anything different to when I was at school.
Right.
I mean, when I was at school, they just handed out the university forms. It wasn't even questioned that,
Oh, really?
Absolutely. Definitely. But I think, something at school level to promote it, because you can have, you could stay as a trade working on the tools if that's what you desire, but equally you can have a very, very successful, lucrative
that's
business.
the thing. I think the schools need to sort of broaden their view on the whole thing as well, and tell people that you're not going to be stuck on one track. You have got different directions to go in. We're lucky in this country because we can have multi-trades. We can, you can specialize in one particular trade. But, you don't have to just be that tradesperson working for someone. You can go along and develop your own business. If you haven't been very academic at school, doesn't mean to say you're stupid.
Absolutely agree.
You're gonna go out there and you could be a genius in your field.
That's right.
But I found things as I went along. Like, I never thought I'd ever know how to run a business or how to deal with people or groups of people and stuff. But that all came through after I left school, my education being out there looking and listening and seeing, looking for inspirational people and taking from them and putting it into your own diary and checking it out as you go along. So I could have just stayed working for a building firm doing things along those lines, but I saw how the managers and how the quantity surveyors worked, and I took a bit of interest in everything, and I put all those little bits together to see how a business would come together and work as a whole.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I didn't, I haven't run a huge business. I've had a small company in Bristol for a long time, which has had to take a back seat, unfortunately, because of the TV. But I still get involved with projects that come along, help people out. But, you could be that person who is a fantastic plumber or an electrician or whatever. You could be a boss one day. You could be employing 2, 3, 10, 30, 50 people in the future, hundreds of people in the future. You could be putting a roof over those families' heads. You could be paying their wages, getting their children in the education. You could be driving a whole new generation of people. Just because you're in a technical college threading a pipe doesn't mean to say you're not going to go any further than that.
And the exciting thing about this industry is it will always be needed in some shape or form, won't it?
Always. It's changing at the moment because of the new modern ways we build, and the modular building that we're going into, and all the different types of materials that we use nowadays, so that buildings breathe and have longevity. We're not just building. Everybody says to me, "Oh, timber frame buildings, you're doing surely they're not going to last." But because of technology and because of insulation and products that makes a property breathe, we can actually build a reasonably priced house and hand it to Joe Bloggs down the road at a decent price. And that house, and you can take pride in that house because you know it's going to be there for hundreds of years.
Yes, yeah. You're making me think of a house that's going up just around the corner, and I walk the dog every day, and I've watched it from the knocked a house down, demolished it, and then obviously went in and cleared the site, and they're in the process of putting the foundations in. I'm watching it go up day by day, and I thought of that the other day. I thought, wow, it must be amazing to think this hopefully will be here, in another 100
years.
Generations to come, absolutely.
I like the whole thing when a house has been built. I've been in the industry 40 odd years. But I love the whole thing of the stuff that I built over the years. I walked past it. It was a building site when I was there, and suddenly it's got like mature trees in the garden, and it's got vegetation, and it's become a home.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it must be amazing.
But yeah, I think schools need to remind people that you're not just going to get stuck on that path. You've got a chance to learn and expand, because your education does not stop the day you leave school.
Yes.
That's when it starts. That's when it really starts.
That's when real life education starts.
And that's when you take responsibility and pride in what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. So how do you feel you can make a difference to the industry now that you are a TV personality?
Well, I think I'm in a very lucky position, because all I can, say is I would like to stay positive and get that positivity across in podcasts, radio interviews, in my TV program, whatever I have to be in. I want people to know that this is a fantastic industry to be working in. And I've been lucky because I've been given the media to work through. So I've got a great platform to get my voice out there. I want to do so much more work along with the apprenticeship schemes and getting people out there, and also with businesses getting in touch with apprenticeship schemes and stuff like that. And, I think I'm in a position where I can show younger people or people who want to change their trade, that this is an industry that is interesting, that is clever, and it is also fun.
The passion certainly comes across. Definitely, yeah. What would you say? What would your advice be to somebody considering a trades career?
Think hard about how you are physically. What you would want to do, how many years you want to be doing that for. Are you a dexterous person? This is like really simple stuff, but if you're talented, if you've got a love and you've got a joy for it, and you've got enough people around you who can show you the right things to do, you will do well. Just be brave. Be brave and go for it, because it is, I keep repeating this, it is a fantastic industry to be in.
Looking back, it's a bit of a cliche question, but looking back at your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self back then when your father got the different tools?
Don't blow all my wages in the pub on a Friday night. Because I never had any food from Monday to Thursday.
But you were having a great time, I'm sure.
I was having a great time. I think the best bit of advice I ever came across was from Bruce Forsyth.
Oh, right.
And he was on a TV interview with Parkinson or someone like this here, and I remember him saying, or whoever the interviewer was, saying to him, "What's the best advice you would give someone going into this business or any other business?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Look after your taxes," because so many people get out there. When you become self-employed, you run your own books and your businesses. Sometimes you look like you're earning lots of money, but please remember that large amount of money that you've just earned, a portion of that belongs to the government.
Absolutely.
And you can't go and spend it on Pop-Tarts and Pop-Tarts and pints of Guinness and other foods that are out there.
Yeah, that's very good advice.
It is a very important thing to do, because if you do look after the finances of your business, it's going to stop you having sleepless nights. If you're earning £100, £20 of that goes to the government, and then you've got your VAT and stuff. Put it away. Look after the money. Make your life simple. Don't duck and dive. It's not worth it. Just go down the line and run a proper, clean, honest business.
Yeah, we actually say create separate bank accounts and just
absolutely
get it out of your bank account. Almost forget that you've got it, because you're right, it's not your money, and I think it does cause so many problems for stress and worry, and when you look at the insolvency statistics, to be fair, and I say it all of the time, I've probably said it on other podcast shows, to be fair, nobody has ever taught people how to budget and manage that side of business things.
I never got that.
Yeah, and it's still the same today, which I think is one of the reasons why we're so busy, because that's often, I would say 95% of our clients come to us with that is something that they want to get out of the program, improve their understanding of their numbers and how to manage them, because it's so many people just look at their bank balance and use that as a barometer of how they're doing, and it's very dangerous. But I can appreciate why that is, and often there's a real fear of the numbers as well, because nobody's taken the time. Accountants speak in a different language. I'm pretty numerate. I love numbers, but often I have to say to my accountant, whoa, hang on, slow down a bit there. Mm-hmm. So talk to me in normal language.
I've noticed a lot of guys that I've worked with on sites and around the place that there's a huge thing that probably hasn't been looked at in a very big way, is form phobia. So there's a lot of people out there who just won't sit down and, when they're given a form to fill in about their taxes or their VAT and stuff, you may be brilliant at your trade, but it doesn't mean to say you're a bookkeeper, and you should work that into your business plan, that you have money aside for someone to look after your books and do those bits and pieces. If that's you should have anyway, but if you're not that way inclined, it's a really important thing to do, because it takes so much stress out of your life. Form phobia I have seen so many times with younger people coming through the industry. Suddenly they're 25 years old and they've got massive tax problems, they've got massive VAT problems, but because sometimes they're just not that way inclined. They might be the best joiner in the world.
Absolutely. Well, we use a personality profiling tool which highlights where your strengths are, and more often than not, it's called talent dynamics. more often than not, people in this industry, you know, they're practical and they're extrovert. They've got a lot of what we call blaze energy. So their strengths are with people. They're not with the office. And it's a relief to them to kind of, what we're not saying is, right, you need to learn the office. You need to get better at things that are your weakness. It's the opposite. It's, as you say, get somebody else in who loves doing that stuff. And that's what then releases the growth of your business. But so many businesses the growth is capped because they haven't got the right people sat around the table in some shape or form. Yeah.
You need the right people around you all the way through the process. You know, you do want to be sitting on a Saturday night with your head in your hands worrying about, you know, you want to go to work to enjoy your job, to have fun and deliver a fantastic product. But you also, at the end of your working week, you want to be happy, you want to be with your family, you want to be healthy, and that healthy is a physical health and a mental health. And I see so many people struggling with their mental health in the industry because they won't put their hand up and ask for help.
Interesting. Yeah, couldn't agree more. So the next question is kind of linked with this. What skills do you think set tradespeople apart in today's job market?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head a minute ago, and it's being brilliant with people, because it's an incredibly social industry. You know, whether you're the smaller builder who's going to someone's house to do a conversion for them, and you're working around their family, see them leaving to go to school in the morning, or you know, you also, if you're running bigger sites, you know, you have to be good with your staff. You have to be able to work with as a team. You know, be a team player. You have to be able to give and take a little bit. You know, get rid of the selfishness that you have to get your job completed quicker than someone else and get out the door. Be a good team player. Work alongside other people, and also encourage younger people who are on site. You know, don't be pushing them around and, you know, puffing your chest up and being the big I am. Share a bit of love and joy on the site. Make it a nice place to be for younger people who are coming through.
Yeah. It's making me think of a construction company that I was just talking to yesterday, and it's so true. And it's, you know, I say it frequently, and it doesn't really matter actually what industry you're in. If you're leading a group of people, there is so much psychology involved in managing people. You know, some days you're having to be the counselor, others the disciplinarian, others the visionary, you know, geeing them up. It's understanding what makes people tick and how to get the best out of them.
That was part of my learning curve when I joined DIY SOS. So when I went into DIY SOS, because I've always worked in the building industry, but I didn't have a massive company. You know, I had 4 or 5 people working for me. I was doing smaller jobs up to sort of like a few £100,000 and bits like that. But I went into DIY SOS, and suddenly I realized the psychology behind the whole thing, where you're dealing with multiple personalities. You're dealing with mood swings. You're dealing with people who like you, people who don't like you, people who want to do that job, people who don't want to do that job, people who can work under pressure, others who can't, you know. But what I learned in DIY SOS is keeping everybody happy. I looked into the psychology of it, working with people. It was exhausting, and it is exhausting. You know, I could go into DIY SOS and we would have 150 people on site in one day in a house. You know, a house in the garden. You're doing a 3 to 4 month project in 10 days. It's massive pressure. And it was the trades who would come along and join us that I learned from, because they were positive, happy people that wanted to give something back in their society. And I learned from them. But you always have little hiccups as you go along. There's different egos that won't work together and this, that, and the other. But SOS has been an amazing learning platform, because I have a better understanding of how people work simply by just dealing with those personalities. You know, and I know that in the first 2 or 3 days, it's really hard work to get people to work together under that pressure. But when that pressure becomes fun and joy is involved in it, it makes the workplace a much nicer place to be. So SOS has been a huge learning platform for me with working with people and how to deal with people, how to treat people.
I guess it's getting the right contractors on the job as well, isn't it? With those
absolutely
personality traits, really.
Yeah, but also going back to something you talked about earlier that you asked me, was it's how you present yourself. So before we go and do a build, we would hold a trades day in that area, because obviously we don't know any trades in that area. So we have to get people who are interested in the build. I will do a trades day, and in that trades day, I could see 450 to 600 people, sometimes more. And I have to whittle that down to maybe 150 people to be able to take on this build. And one of the things that I use all the time is presentation. Is I go back to that presentation, is how that person presents themselves, what they turn up in, how they're dressed, what they're covered in, because I know if I've got people on board who have a good presentation, I'm not being snobby about this, but I think if you're well presented.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a reflection of how you run your business, isn't it?
It's a reflection of how you're going to run that business. And I know that you're going to leave that house immaculate at the end of the day.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's one of the little things I use when I'm choosing people to come on to SOS.
And what sort of other things do you look for?
I like a bit of character. Okay. I like somebody who can make me laugh.
Okay. Yeah.
I like people with big biceps. I look for people who are fit and healthy, because I'm going to work them very hard, and I know they need to be fit and healthy and get to the end of that job. I look for people who are brave. I encourage women into the industry non-stop. And even in today's count, you still get that reaction when you put a woman on site. That I still hear the chit chat and stuff, and I do go around and clip people's wings when I hear it. I'm not shy about it at all, because I love having women on site, because it also changes the whole demographic of the site. It changes the thinking. It changes the language. And you know what? It brings such laughter, because you end up getting these incredible women on board who just are strong, powerful, funny, skilled tradespersons. And it's great. SOS has been a huge learning platform for me.
It's interesting, because a lot of the things that you're talking about there are the attitude, and that's what we always say. If you get people with the right attitude, yes, they need to have the basic skill, but you can't really train attitude. You can develop skill, but you can't really develop attitude. People either have a great attitude or they don't. And it's interesting. So where do you see the future for the industry, and what can business owners do to start planning for this?
Well, I hate to say it, we're in a very tricky spot at the moment with the industry, because there's been so much change with coming out of Europe. Brexit has put a lot of pressure on us. What I have noticed is I've been talking to some companies in London who are very big in the industry, and they're losing ground-working teams every couple of months. People are leaving the UK. Ground-working teams, let's say, for example, Polish ground-working teams are moving away. They're traveling home to see their families. And they go through Berlin, and Berlin is booming, and they don't bother coming back to the UK because they're getting paid in the euro. They're not going to get kicked out of the country. They're not coming back. And the building industry has lost an awful lot of fantastic European workers, and that's going to carry on happening. So that throws us a couple of problems. We don't have enough tradespeople on site to bring apprentices on, to pass those skills on. At the end of the last recession, for an example, in Cumbria, a lot of the people in that area who were tradespeople left the industry and went into factory jobs and other jobs that were more secure because their mortgage was at risk and they couldn't do that anymore. So there's been certain things that have happened around the country, which is we have lost tradespersons too. So on sites, it's very important to have those those people around from the ages of, I think people from the ages of 40 to 55 are great mentors for apprentices coming onto the sites because they've got a brilliant skill base to pass on. But unfortunately, we're losing more and more of those people to other industries, to other countries. So we haven't got the people to bring the apprentices on. I think the industry needs to look at apprenticeship schemes, like really at this moment. Do not waste any more time. And there's different ways into that. You know, we can go through the CITB to look at apprenticeship schemes and grant systems that are out there for taking apprentices on. You know, CITB are brilliant at put you in the right direction if you're a small business with 5 or 6 people on, or if you're a much, much bigger company with 100, 150 employees, whatever that happens to be. CITB are brilliant at doing that. They want to bring people into the industry. I believe companies should be looking at the schools and the colleges. You know, starting off in the younger schools, speaking to the schools to get visits from the school to different sites and show younger people what it's like to be in the industry. Take them out of the classroom and take them to places that will make them want to work. They'll want to work in later on in life. Not just the colleges. Go below that. Go to the schools. Take that on. Also, there's a thing called all-age apprenticeships. So there's people who might have been working in a totally different industry and have just decided they don't want to work in an office anymore. You know, you can talk to CITB about that, about taking older people on as apprentices, who people could step back, you know. So look into all these things. Women. Let's get more women in the industry. I want more women in the industry. British Gas have been amazing. They've brought so many women in on the boiler engineer side of stuff. You know, it's fantastic. We need to look at bringing more women in. Stop being frightened of employing women in a trade that is a masculine-based trade. You know, get them into the industry. It's not just, it doesn't has to be a hands-on. It can be in surveying, architecture, whatever, as I said earlier on. We can also look at prisoners.
Yes.
Right, we've got prisoners who are coming out who might have gone down. They've done their time. You know, some people need a second chance.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
You know, there's an opportunity there to take people on who really want to try and get back into society. You know, if you're a brave enough employer to do that, there's grant systems out there for all of that. It changes by region, so you need to look into your local government to tell you where to go to get those grants. But a really good foundation is the CITB. And schools, colleges, older people who want to change their trade, look out for people, give people opportunities. You know, you could do with that extra couple of people on your site because your job will run smoother, your job will run quicker, your profits will go up quicker. Just because you're paying more wages doesn't mean to say you're losing money.
Yes, that's such good advice and some really good ideas there, because it's interesting. I think a lot of people who have businesses, they naturally worry about where their next client is going to come from. But in my experience, if you're good at what you do, that's never the concern. You know, you'll always have plenty work, but you need people, bodies on the ground. And at the moment, it's just so challenging.
Well, there's a silver lining to every story. We are losing people who are going back to Europe and mainland Europe and not coming back here. We're losing squads and gangs all over the place. But that's leaving openings for us to get back out there in this country. You know, this country is just a fantastic engineering company. Whether it's in shipbuilding, in construction, whatever, we are a fantastic company for producing that sort of product. And we have the skill base in this country. Let's educate that skill base and bring it up. Start at the schools and the colleges. Go along. There's grant systems for businesses out there to take apprenticeships on. We need apprenticeship schemes. We need the people not to be signing on the dole as a second generation that have lived through another couple of recessions, who think that's the only way forward. The government is going to support us. Because going out to work is not only going to be financially better off for you, it's going to leave you in a mentally much better, stronger place. It's going to give you respect for your surroundings. It's going to give you respect for your home. It's going to give you pride when you put that food on the table for your family. You know,
some really, really great advice, Mark.
We have a chance to make Britain great again. We've got the trades and we've got the people. We can do it. Look at apprenticeships.
So what about you personally? What's next for your TV career, and what aspirations do you have?
As I say, I've made some really big decisions recently, and I'm going in a different direction. I've got another series of dream kitchens and bathrooms, which is starting in a couple of days' time, actually. So I'm back on the road. So that's really good. So that's going to take up quite a bit of time. And then plus I've got involved with another TV program. I can't really tell you what that is, but let's just keep, it's in the construction industry anyway. But it's a really big one. It's a really big one for me. And I've been approached by a company to take that on board. And I'm super excited about it because it's right out there for me. And I'm going to be, hopefully dealing with some amazing projects.
Okay. I was going to ask, is there anything that you haven't done that you would love to do, but maybe that's it?
There's lots of things I would love to do. There is lots of things I would love to do. I would still like to expand my knowledge on, I can tell you, don't go on holiday with me because I will take you around building sites. I still want to know more and more about modern building. The joiner I worked with when I was an apprentice, Geordie McCoubrey, Geordie always said to me, every day's a school day. You're always learning. I find learning something really exciting. So I do. I love it when I suddenly come across something brand new. And, somebody's built something out of a material that I haven't come across. They've showed me how that goes together. Like recently, we just did a build. The last Children in Need build we did for DIY SOS was in Swansea. And we built a surf school for surfability in Swansea. And we worked along with this architect in Wales. And we built this surf school. And I went there last week to see how they were getting on. And the surf school, we're putting 400 people through their books on a normal season. They're now putting 650 through, and they're not even halfway through the season. We've built them a building that runs on £14 a month because we looked into solar heating, we looked into air source heat pumps, we looked at how to insulate the building, we used a living roof on it. And by creating buildings that cost so little to run, means companies can spend more money on employment. If we can produce buildings that don't cost a fortune to heat and light, that money can go into bringing more people on, and you can expand your company through that. So modern thinking when it comes to building is what gets me exciting.
I have a client who would love to speak to you. I know it's coming to mind totally with this, but
can I just jump back a little
absolutely,
bit? Yeah. Back to where we were talking about the CITB and colleges and schools and stuff, and how people are going into building. You're not going to end up on a building site if you don't want to. There's other ways to approach this industry. And one of the things that I've seen recently is that's going on a lot. I first spotted it in Australia about 7 or 8 years ago, is modular building systems. So there's companies now that are building houses, hotels, everything in a factory. They're building them indoors, and it still takes all the same trades. It still takes the carpenters, the electricians, the plumbers, and everybody who's connected to the building industry. But the industry is so different. You're just not out on a freezing cold, muddy building site. We can work in different zones in these trades.
Mm-hmm. Well, 3D printing,
3D printing.
That's happening, isn't it, already in
and
China?
You can have a lifetime of buying shiny tools.
Tell me more.
Well, obviously, as you said earlier, you're academic and you don't do things with your hands. Did you know the pleasure you get when you get like a new screwdriver
No, clearly
or a
not.
new chop saw?
To be explained.
Oh my goodness!
Wouldn't say
that's why you academics.
But I wouldn't say I'm academic. No, I'd say I'm not practical.
All right, that's why you white collar workers should have much more respect for our trade. This is a brilliant industry to be in. You can have a fantastic career in it. You're not going to be stuck on one track, and you've got the opportunity to buy shiny tools.
Wow, fabulous. Well, I'm going to end it there, Mark. That was very, very entertaining on lots of levels, but I think some really great different advice for our listeners to consider. And again, coming back to this recruitment challenge, that's such a hot topic at the moment, but some really
massive,
really great ideas there. So I know that will be of great value. So all I can say is thank you very much again for being so generous with your time and coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you.
I really hope you have enjoyed today's podcast. I would love to invite you to join our Trades and Builders Business Growth Group on Facebook, where I regularly share lots of information to help you create a more successful trades business. You can also order a copy of my book, Build and Grow, which is available on Amazon.